Thank you very much. We're shooting for 100%, but that'll take some time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cannella. Ms. Mitchell.
Ditto Mr. Cannella's comments.
Fantastic. Madam Vice Chair.
I did appreciate our lengthy conversation, especially about the solar at schools and the approval of public schools on military bases. And I am fully confident that you will continue to work as hard as you have in the past and do all that you want to accomplish for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Ms. Leyva. No questions. Fantastic. Those in support of today's nomination, Mr. Whittam, please come on up. Those in support.
Mr. Chair, members, Tom Duffy for the Coalition for Adequate School Housing. We are very happy that he is before you again. We have a lot of admiration for the state architect. He is practical, he's personable, and he's persistent, and that's needed in this job. Building schools and designing schools in California is a very difficult task, and he has really brought a fresh air to DSA. We're pleased with the nomination, and we support his confirmation by you and by the Senate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duffy. Next, support.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem and members. Mark Christian with the American Institute of Architects, California Council on Support. Mr. Whittam has shown his leadership abilities in many different ways, being a principal of a successful architectural firm, being elected by his colleagues as president of the AI California Council, being elected as president of AI National, and we see that he's used his leadership skills, his leadership abilities to address the backlog of the closeouts and to align the California Building Code with the federal ADA. For the first time, California's building code is now certified by the U.S. Department of Justice as compliant with the ADA. Hopefully this will bring much greater certainty and benefits to those with disabilities as well as the business community. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next support.
Eric Bach with the Los Angeles Unified School District. We're pleased to be here. We have a unique experience with Chet. Maybe he doesn't want me to say this, but he used to sit on our bond oversight committee. So he has a very unique relationship with school construction, how schools operate. And when he was first confirmed, we wanted to make sure that, and we're hopeful that he would bring that experience to his role as a state architect to try to drive through some of the cultural changes, the relationships, the service. And in our experience, he has. Our relationship with our LA DSA office wasn't always the best until Chet arrived. It is an amazing relationship right now, a lot of collaboration, and we owe a lot of that to Chet's work over these years. So we support the nomination.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Any other folks in support of today's nomination? Any other folks in support? Seeing none, those in opposition? Seeing no opposition, Mr. Whittam, I want to thank you very much for your public service and for your desire to continue as the state architect. Just have one request. Obviously, you're a wonderful architect, as shown through your leadership at the governance level of the American Institute of Architects. Some of the public schools, it looks like the design, looks like the architect who designed our California state prisons, have designed some of these schools. And when it comes to aesthetics, and I know there's all cost factors, but all children deserve, irrespective of who they are and where they come to a place that's soothing and aesthetically pleasing and says, welcome, this is your place, this is your home, this is your sanctuary. Yeah, I know there's some good architects, there's bad architects, just like there's good politicians, there's bad politicians, like there's good lawyers and bad lawyers and so forth, But whatever influence that you can use to leverage, I think, especially with energy efficiency buildings, our cost savings, ambient lighting, using the power of the sun, what we have here, it has a real impact psychologically on a child's, academic career. So whatever influence you could use, I am not an architect, but I know when I see ugly. So, and we have a motion of a ditto, by Ms. Mitchell. So we have a motion by Ms. Mitchell. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Cannella? Aye. Cannella, aye. Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Mr. Whittam, congratulations. We'll send your nomination to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you want to lift the call?
Yeah, we're going to lift the call, yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Madam Secretary, let's lift a call on item 1C, that is Mr. Banks, item 1C.
Senators Mitchell? Fuller? Mitchell, aye.
Okay, Mr. Banks, 4-0, 4-0. We save always the best for last. Mr. Mullen, welcome, come on up. Mr. Mullen, thank you so very much for your patience. We are honored that you have come here today with us, and if there's anyone that you'd like to introduce, please do so.
There's nobody in the hearing room, but I would like to acknowledge my wife, Michelle
Absolutely.
Clary, and my daughters, Nathalie and Celine.
Okay, fantastic. They are acknowledged for the record. And Mr. Mullen, if you'd like to make your statement, and we'll go to questions and answers or commentaries.
Mr. Pro Tem, I do have a statement.
Okay, fantastic.
Mr. Pro Tem and members of the California Senate Rules Committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today and ask you to support my confirmation by the Senate as a member of the Board of Governors of the California Independent System Operator Corporation. I have been on the ISO Board of Governors for the past 4 years. During this time, the state of California has adopted explicit policies increasing the use of non-carbon-based renewable energy as a key instrument to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Renewable capacity on the ISO-operated electric grid has grown from a few thousand megawatts in 2011 to 18,000 megawatts of capacity by the end of this year. By the year 2020, renewable capacity will amount to more than 22,000 megawatts, which will be 35% of California's installed electricity generation. The ISO has helped facilitate this renewable energy development with effective transmission planning and decisions and recommendations that guard system reliability. The ISO works cooperatively with the state's energy regulatory and planning agencies to confront challenges such as the sudden closure of the San Onofre nuclear generating station in 2012 and the growing periodic overgeneration of energy by renewable resources at certain times of the day and seasons of the year. New concepts and lower costs for clean energy are emerging almost daily. I envision a time in the near future when ISO markets will take full advantage of conventional zero-emission resources along with energy efficiency, demand response, energy storage, fuel cells, secondary heat source utilization, and other advanced technologies that can provide needed support to the grid without adding carbon emissions to the environment. Further, the interconnected nature of the grid in the western regions of the U.S. provides us with opportunities to improve reliability while reducing carbon emissions and achieve wholesale power costs, not only in California, but in the entire western grid. If confirmed by the Senate, I look forward to working with my fellow board members, the ISO staff, the state energy agencies, and the legislature to achieve the sustainable energy future our progress to date argues is available to us. Mr. Pro Tem, I'm ready for questions.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Mr. Mullen. We'll get to questions and commentaries from the members. Let me start off, and when we start off with the Energy Imbalance Market, EIM, give us your thoughts with regards to the potential benefits of the Energy Imbalance Market for the state of California. And, you know, on top of that, if you can, go a little into detail with regards to importation of energy into California and the potential, you know, less in-state renewable use within the state of California, because as we know with the EIM, the end goal objective obviously is to stabilize the market and to lower costs. How do you see this working out through your vision?
Okay, well, as the title implies, energy imbalance. All electric systems need to be in perfect balance, supply and demand, to operate efficiently and effectively, carrying the electrons to the place where they work and provide us with the lights and the power and the benefits of electricity for us on a regular basis. The EIM is a limited market that it works in the last 5 minutes before an hour, where systems that are party to the EIM, that work in the EIM, can balance their supplies with and demand. The AIM is sort of a final touch, if you want. It allows a marketplace to determine what the cost will be and the nature of the resources that are used to balance the electric grid system in California. And the EIM also offers a place where utilities and balancing authorities outside of California can participate and buy excess power that's available from California producers. The theory of the EIM is basically to sop up all the energy that's available and distribute it in an economic fashion by the working of a non-biased marketplace mechanism.
So how do you reconcile the governor's ambitious plan with regards to greenhouse gas reductions with an expanded CAL-ISO under EIM?
Well, with the EIM, a balancing authority has to join the EIM to have it operate in their system. So we have PacifiCorp, which is a holding company for 5 utilities in the Rocky Mountain, Northern California, Oregon, Washington area. And we expect the EIM participation from Arizona Public Service and Nevada Energy. So other adjacent systems will participate in the EIM. And what this does is it has one benefit. In addition to balancing the systems, it allows California renewable production that is access to our needs at a given moment to be availed upon by other users, so that in effect the investment in the renewables in California has a place to recover costs if there is excess generation.
Let me ask you a question on the governance side of CAL-ISO with regards to PacifiCorp. If CAL-ISO is to subsume PacifiCorp, if I'm correct, and obviously you can make the corrections that are necessary, how is this going to work out governance-wise? Because currently the board of directors on the CAL-ISO, such as yourself, are Californians, and PacifiCorp, as you just highlighted, or their region is a 6-wide region. I don't know how many, I forget the transmission lines, the miles of transmission lines, but this would create a different dynamic. How do you visualize this happening? Are we going to expand the CAL-ISO board to a regional board of directors? And the reason why I say this, if this is done correctly, it can do good things. But if it's not done correctly, a lot of bad things can happen as a result.
I absolutely agree. Let's back up a little bit because I think we're mixing two operations into one. They're similar. There's the energy imbalance market, which is a marketplace that operates in the last 5 minutes before an hour begins. People who subscribe, or entities that subscribe to EIM participation, can only offer what into the marketplace the excess that they have for absorption by other utilities in that 5-minute frame. There is also a memorandum of understanding between PacifiCorp and the ISO to examine the feasibility, costs, and benefits of having PacifiCorp become what's known as a PTO, a participating transmission organization. The ISO today has 17 PTOs made up primarily of California utilities and other load-serving entities. And this, if the numbers work out right, if the assessment is correct, that there would be an advantage to California for having an enlarged ISO, then of course we would come forth and propose that. One of the things that would be required for an expanded ISO would be some change in governance so that other areas, other regions of the West that are participating in the ISO would have some representation. This isn't a matter of sort of goodwill or well, it's just a necessity because for a utility that's, say, owned by PacifiCorp, its regulators would probably require it to operate in a marketplace that had some form of representation beyond just the California appointees of the California governor. How it could be done and what would be the effects are subjects of study today. I can't present to you any particular conclusions or suggest to you the form by which there might be a broadening of management, but a broadening of the board. But it is certainly something that would have to be considered if the expansion of the ISO footprint were to go ahead. And of course, obviously, if there's going to be an expansion of the board, it would involve the legislature to approve it. So, sort of anticipating a question where, who's calling the shots here. It's quite obvious that the legislature has a significant role to play if any of these ideas that are incorporated in the MOU are actually put forward and is desirable to adopt them.
No, in point, well taken. But I think it is important to hear your thoughts with regards to the possible integration at the governance level of the concept of regionalization for folks who potentially may be part of an expanded CalISO board. So I think it is important to hear what your thoughts are and how it could possibly work.
Well, Mr. President, one of the things that attracts me to the idea of an expanded ISO is that it provides more resources throughout the western United States and an opportunity to reduce the utilization of gas-fired and coal-fired power. If we have excess renewable generation here, beyond the needs of the California energy users, and we have a certain proportion that is excess to our needs, there's basically three things that can be done with it. You can ignore the issue and allow the excess generation to burn out the power lines. You can turn everything off, or you can have some kind of secondary marketplace by which the excess power generated from our renewables can be utilized effectively by other providers of electric service throughout the western region. I know there's some concern that if we had an expanded ISO, that it would be an opportunity to introduce coal-fired power to California. This seems to me to be very unlikely. First of all, most of the coal-fired generators that are in the West are not connected or not easily connected to the California existing system. So we have a lot of plants that are out there that are generating power from coal being utilized in the Rocky Mountains and northern western states. But they have very little opportunity to get to California. Furthermore, they're attractive resources to the utilities that use them because of their low cost. But if carbon-based fuels electricity from carbon-based fuels were to come into California, they would have to comply with California's laws on controlling emissions of greenhouse gases. And certainly cap and trade costs would apply. Most likely, that would make the coal-fired power, even if it were physically connectable to California,
to the grid,
to make it too costly, and very, very unlikely that it would be put into the marketplace to be purchased by other utilities simply because of cost. It's not an economic proposition. Going back to the other issue that your questions raised, the the generation of excess electricity.
Overgeneration.
Overgen by California renewables is just sort of a nature of the beast. I mean, in the spring, for example, when the sun is very bright and there's a lot of clear days and a lot of breeze, there's a lot of renewable generation. But because the temperature isn't very hot, the consumers of electricity in California are not turning on the air conditioning and the other cooling devices that are necessary. So I'm envisioning a chart which I think we've shared with your staff. But in the spring, there's a big chunk of renewable energy that is not being consumed by California consumers and needs to go somewhere. As I say, a secondary market where excess generation can be sopped up is something that would be very desirable for California utilities and consumers. Let me add that in addition to exporting this excess power to potential users outside of California, there are other technology devices which can absorb this excess production as well. Storage systems, be they lithium-ion batteries or pump storage where water is run up a hill and then during hours when there's a lot of excess power to pump it up the hill and then it runs downhill to provide power in the evening hours, for example. Those are other options, other opportunities by which we can deal with the issue of overgeneration from renewable resources.
Okay, fantastic. Now, you segued into the issue of thermal coal and the plants outside the state of California. And obviously, you made reference to California Law 2007 that doesn't allow our current IOUs prospectively to expand on any power plant driven by thermal coal for electrical generation. So obviously, the IOU's utility mix portfolio, I think, averages about 8% or less with regards to any importation of coal outside of the state of California to deliver electricity for California ratepayers. So that being said, with PacifiCorp, and perhaps you have new information that you can update us if there's any. PacifiCorp has many holdings that are coal holdings, Wyoming, right, Utah, Arizona, and so forth. You sort of kind of answered the question somewhat, but I want to be a little more clear on this issue with regards to PacifiCorp. If in fact PacifiCorp becomes part of CAISO and is integrated into our system, are we going to, I want to hear a personal assurance, actually, I want to hear a personal assurance from you, Mr. Mullen, that the exportation, or I should say the importation of coal to California is not going to come to fruition, number one, and that PacifiCorp's integration, or for that matter, any market or any other entity is not going to conflict with the governor's or the legislative body's renewable portfolio when it comes to clean energy.